You're welcome back, and to begin our discussion, let's hear the views of some Nigerians on the issue in discourse.
It's not good for one politician to be jumping from one party to the other.
Your responsibility is to support the party, and you pay your dues. You support any candidate that the political party, that very political party present to present in any elections. And lack of political ideology also contributes immensely.
Maybe let them, their constitution, they have to change their constitution so that any party that nominate a candidate and he win, he shouldn't jump to another party. If he's jumping to another party, let him resign from that party, from that seat, so that they should do another by-election.
They should believe in the party, because once you say something and you did not do what you said, that means they do not agree. What you decide to do, you stand for it.
Every political party has ideology. They should go and before they join any party, they should know the ideology of that party. And to see that either party is not their kind of party, they shouldn't join. Like in America, it is impossible for you to decamp for Democrats and join Republican, and in the space of 6 months, they will give you a party ticket. It doesn't happen in America like that. If you're a Republican, it means you are part and parcel of Republican ideology. They have ideology in their system. Unlike our own here, that politics is a means to an end for some people. For some people, it's a way of making themselves relevant. They can bulldoze their way into the system.
All right, joining us in the studios now to kick off the conversation, let's welcome two of our regular guests. One is currently on national assignment, but of course, he appears on our program from time to time. Professor Sam Ego, of course, is a professor of political science and currently the resident electoral commissioner in Niger State. Prof, delighted to have you.
Good morning, Kingsley.
Okay. Also here with us is Dr. Yunusa Tanko, chairman of the National Conscience Party, NCP. Delighted to have you again, and good morning.
Thank you very much, Kingsley.
Okay. All right. We're expecting two other guests to be with us in the course of the conversation. One will be from our Benin Network Center, and then the other, of course, will be via Zoom. Let's begin the conversation straight away with Professor Sam Ego. Professor Sam Ego, I mean, political party management, these are issues that we have often discussed. The organic, or if you like, the disparate nature of our political parties, and the fact that we have a major challenge, as it were, with political party organization and the role of parties in our democracy. But today we're coming back, to the very foundation, which is to say party membership, political parties, and of course, sustainable democracy. What is the place of members and membership in a political party?
Thank you. Now, before I answer the question of the place of members and membership, let me reinforce the points you made earlier in terms of the importance of political parties and why we are even discussing the role of membership. I think the first point is that political parties are not just the institutional platform for running democratic elections. Political parties are transmission belts for connecting citizens to the wider political system, to the power system, and to decision making. The second point is that political parties, they handle the procedural elements of candidate selection for public offices in the legislature, in the executive. And to that extent, you cannot think of a viable democracy without political parties that have active membership or members. So it is active membership that actually defines the legitimacy of political parties as institutions for building democracy. So having said this, I would like to say that membership, as a matter of fact, connotes a formal status of belonging to a party as a voluntary organization of people who come together because they have a common idea about how to manage the common space, the political space or the public space. But this formal membership as a status confers on members two important responsibilities. One responsibility is that of active participation in decision making, active participation in the process of selecting candidates for public offices, active participation in the policy-making arena, and active participation when parties are faced with choice. For example, they want to go into alliance with another party. They then discuss the terms on which those kind of alliances are forged. The second aspect is that you contribute money, you fund the activities of that party. Of course, increasingly, in many democracies, the reality now is that the membership dues that members pay cannot be enough for running parties. And we have seen a very big example in our own country, where indirectly, and I think that's why people like Tanko Yunusa complain persistently, that parties that are in power, get the state to fund the activities of that party. So you can't even say you are relying on funding, but that is a formal responsibility of members, and increasingly that is not enough anymore. So in other words, political parties membership is very critical. In fact, that is what defines the viability of a political party. That is what defines what you call the institutionalization of the political party. And what do I mean by institutionalization? The ability for a political party to survive over time, carrying out its routine task, of providing that space for members who are active and therefore who are the principal, agents in decision making. And of course, if you want to know how important, membership is of a political party or for a political party, just go back to proclamations of our party leaders at the height of its power, when the PDP controlled the presidency and about 2/3 of the states in the country. They claimed to be the biggest political party in Africa south of the Sahara. And the basis for that wasn't simply because of the amount of offices, the number of offices they controlled. It is based on its membership. And we now hear the APC also saying that, making the same assertion about its size. And we have seen in more recent time, membership drive, including using e-platform, to increase, the number. So number is important, membership is important. But what I find in the literature as a political scientist is that globally, there's a concern about declining party membership, particularly the so-called mature democracies. It's so bad that, very strong parties are finding other avenues, of getting members, including waiving fee. This is happening in developed democracies, including waiving fees for members and then using internet, platform to recruit, which is very simple. So by simply clicking a button and completing that, you can become a member without all the cumbersome obligations that traditionally you are supposed to undergo. But the point is that things are changing, and we are beginning to think that in this country, if political parties will remain to play the role they play in our democratic politics, they need to drive for membership. They need to know how many members they have. It's not enough, to say we have increased. We want to know how many are you. If you want to, for example, do direct primaries, that is direct democracy in which members vote directly either for the party chairman, secretary, treasurer, or vote for presidential candidate. You cannot do that. You cannot claim to be democratic when you don't even know how many you are, you know. And I think that if we really need to develop political parties, one of the things we need to do in this country is to find mechanisms and different ways of supporting parties to improve their capacity for membership drive, you know. And the most unfortunate thing, as I was talking to a friend who works with one of Nigeria's developing partners, is that party support is one area where donors and development partners are reluctant, you know, to go into because of the very political nature of political parties. You know, and I think the IRI, you know, the UNDP, they do this, but they are very cautious, you know, because it's not an easy terrain, you know. So I think this is where I think the poverty of supporting parties come from, precisely because parties are political in nature.
Professor Samugo, we've sort of raised a lot of silent issues with your expert opinion on the topic we're discussing, party membership and sustainable democracy. Dr. Tanko, you have been in the thick of it for some time now. I remember we were here during the 2019 elections. We had a lot of discussions, and you even went to court, I believe, when some of the parties were deregistered. And the party, in your own opinion, who owns these political parties? And what about internal democracy? How does it function? Let's hear a perspective on that.
Okay. For emphasis, just like as Prof has said, you know, the vehicle called the political party is a kind of a conglomerate of interests, people who believe in the same ideology and believe in the same feeling. They come together to work together to seek for political power and to change the narrative in the social democratic environment. And that comes with all of its baggages, some pros and cons. So as we are, as of today, the political parties themselves have challenges. When you ask the question, who owns the political party? Ideally, it is the members who are supposed to own the political parties. I was trained by Gani Fawehinmi, Balaraba Musa, and the rest of them in party formation. They kind of pick people or suggest people or mobilize people who have a kind of belief in that particular trends of their ideology or what they want to sell to the populace. And so they galvanize the people. Like from the background I come from, majority of our political party members are supposed to be peasant farmers, people from the lower downtrodden who are trying to fend for themselves and then train the narrative, barbers and the rest of them. Those you classify as if people who are not really, those are the major take part. And then, of course, the younger generation in the universities who are trying to groom. So they are supposed to be the one that owns the political party. But unfortunately in Nigeria, as of today, those who find themselves in positions of power becomes the owner of the political party. Sometimes, as we see recently, majority of the governors who have a war chest of the treasury belonging to everybody are the one who determine the fate of the political party. Unfortunately, in those distant time, you used to see in a grouping of meetings of political party leaders, what you see is the leaders of the party. When you say leaders of the party, elected executive of the party, those are the ones that midwife the activities of the party. But recently, you find out that when you become a governor or a president, you find them on the fight of the executive. So you find it difficult to exactly know who is the executive of the party and who are the members of the party. There used to be a description of former President Shehu Shagari during this period as a member of a political party, even though he's the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as at that time. When it comes to party meeting, you see him coming back as a member. You see him on the side of the members of the party. You don't see him on the executive level. It's the Achilles and the rest of them who are. But today, it ended up becoming that you even have what they call leader. You know, you cannot even define whether he's an executive of the party or not because he's a leader because he has money. He has been able to amass so much wealth to his into. He decides the fate of who become who. So the people don't own the party anymore. When you come to election, you find out that the governors are the ones who select who become who. At the end of it all, you now end up having people who do not have business with governance. They either take up their brothers or their sisters or their uncles. At the end of it all, even you have portfolios now being raised for a group of marriage, whatever names you cannot call it. So funny names because you just want to create opportunity for your sibling. So the people who are supposed to be the owners of the party are no longer the owners of the party. So a lot of narrative is being attempted to be changed where the people, especially when it comes to the issue of financing of political parties, is very, very important because it is actually the membership due that makes you a bona fide member of that political party. But unfortunately nowadays, instead of members paying the membership due, they are expecting the party to go and search for money anywhere and they want to take from the party. They want to take from the party, and that's where what left majority of other political parties the way we are at the moment. And people will continue to accuse them that we always go to cap in hand into government houses and trying to adopt one political party leader or the other just to make money. Because what we understand is that these same people that you people think that they are doing well or they are the governors, they are siphoning what belongs to you and I. So in that case, if they can be using the treasury that belongs to all of us, everybody wants to say, okay, let's be fair about it. Bring it out for the benefit of everybody, not you only. But that is not supposed to be the democratic system. They are supposed not to have, even when you are going for party meetings, as a governor, you know, normally for you to use siren, you are going to a party meeting that doesn't belong to you. It's wrong.
Dr. Mr. Tonko, we'll come to talk about that, but I hear that our remaining guests have joined us. I'd like to introduce Aslem Ojezwa, former commissioner and former APC chairman, Edo State. Thank you so much for joining us.
So much for having me.
Yeah, we are talking about party membership and sustainable democracy. Let's have your view on how membership of political parties can strengthen democracy in Nigeria.
Well, you know, like somebody already said, the owners of the party is the members of the party. So they become the radical feature of political association, that membership. The more members you have, the more robust your political party is. And between the members of the party and the constitution of the party, they determine the future of that party.
I don't know. But the way appear to have an audio challenge with Ansem Ojezwa. Well, I just wondering, Ansem, we'll return to you presently. We want to introduce our other guest who is joining us via Zoom. You can see her there on the right side of your screen. Professor Oluremi Shonaya. She's a very familiar face to Nigerians. In 2015, she was the presidential candidate of Kowa Party. Prof. Shonaya, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria after a long while.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right. The Zoom connection is clear, so let's take advantage of it straight away. Well, we're just trying to set the foundation for this conversation by seeking, in the first instance, to evaluate the role of members and membership of political parties in a sustainable democracy. Why are members important in a political party, but what do we have today in Nigeria?
Again, I say good morning to Nigerians, and thank you for having me participate in this conversation. Members are important to political parties because we know that political parties are the gateway, to attaining political power. Because if you want to govern you have to go through a political party. Now, how are the political parties themselves constituted? And what is it that they want to achieve? All the members together have to determine the orientation of the political party. Unfortunately, that's not what we see around us most of the time. You know, democracy is built on governance by the majority, so that even within the political parties, it should be the voice of the majority that helps to define what the orientation, what the vision of the political party would be. But unfortunately, you know, we just have a political party that basically bears the stamp of maybe an individual or just a handful of individuals. And then the members are just herded along. That's very unfortunate. That's not what we ought to be seeing in terms of the way that political parties are being run. They should really be harnessing ideas, you know, abilities and skills from the membership to define the orientation of the party and, you know, to drive the vision that the party would have for the country which they seek to govern. There's more to be said, therefore, about, you know, how to achieve that in terms of skills development and training. And I do have, you know, some points to make in that area, but let this suffice now for the opening statement.
Professor Shonaya, thank you very much there for your brief opener. I want us to return to Barrister Anselm Ojezwa, who is with us in our Benin Network Center. Anselm, well, there is a tendency to romanticize what went on in the First and Second Republics with regard to members, political party membership, and of course, sustaining democracy. You've been very active in the Fourth Republic, and you had some experience also in the aborted Third Republic, and had some dealings also with the Second Republic. In your opinion, what is the qualitative difference between what we had, say, in the Second Republic, to which Yunus Atanko has already referred, and what we have in the Fourth Republic, talking about political membership and then seeking to use them as a basis for driving parties and also ensuring that there is sustainable democracy?
Like this.
Yeah, it looks like the Benin Network Center is... all right, Anselm, yeah, you're back on.
Some younger elements who just came in and became very influential. A mix of that created the fulcrum upon which the Second Republic operated. You will find out that over time, as technology improves, membership participation becomes even more evident. There was less emphasis on membership registers in the Second Republic, but in this dispensation, you will find out that some political parties are even beginning to digitalize their registers. So that tells you that the membership is becoming more and more important in the affairs of the party. Not to also remove from the fact that the constitution of the political parties defines the basis and terms and conditions of association. Unfortunately, some of those who have the responsibility to manage or administer the parties don't even read those documents, not to talk of, obeying those rules. So you find problems. The problems really arise not from the Constitution themselves, but from the ability of people to obey the rules they themselves subscribe to.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll now come back to the studio. Professor Egu, party democracy is still built around personalities, especially on people holding high positions in government. Why is that still persisting? Why are the people not in control of the party itself?
Let me take us back to a very important idea that came out from the Babangida regime, talking about political parties. And I think why this idea is very important, and I want to share, is that the transition program that Babangida drew was a very long and elaborate one. And it had support of many academics. And many of the processes were very credible, beginning with setting up a political bureau and so on and so forth. Now, one of the major points raised by Babangida when he decided to create two major parties was a philosophical point that they wanted to create an equal opportunity for everybody, in which everybody is a joiner and nobody is a founder. And that, for me, speaks to the question of power relations within political parties. So that when somebody or a group of people are founders and others are joiners, that already sets, a framework of power relations. That's number one. Number two, I do think that political parties suffer from identity problem. What is this identity problem? I've listened to some elegant political scientists argue that why do you need to bother about democracy in political parties? After all, political parties are akin to private organizations. The only thing is that they don't register with Corporate Affairs Commission, but that in terms of the principle of party organization, it is, individual. So why do you need to bother, in the first place? So there is a tension, between that libertarian understanding of party organization and the democratic imperatives, because at the end of the day, the parties may look like private organizations, but the very important public functions they perform in terms of linkage of citizens to power structures and to participation in a democracy commit political parties to democratic values which they cannot run away from. Unfortunately, however, in our situation, you have already explained the problem. The funding regime has changed. And political parties have to do so many things, with money. They don't recruit voters. They recruit votes. It's a major difference, meaning you need a huge chunk of money. You are not mobilizing. The parties don't have, traditional issues that they are campaigning on. They don't have a particular social audience they are appealing to. They couch their language in a way that they are attracting everybody. And there are constituencies that cannot get the vote unless they pay for it. So, in reality, political parties are in trouble because they have to do so many things. And precisely because the whole problem is about power. And it's not about, the social commitment or commitment to a particular social end for society. Therefore, you are in a game of power. And so all you do from morning till evening for political parties is how to get that power, So other important principles, become far-fetched. They become too abstract for parties and party leaders to understand. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, Professor Sam Egu, thank you. I mean, you say political parties now do a lot of things, and the subtext of that is that a lot of the things they do, including what you refer to as not seeking to recruit voters but to recruit votes, means that those things are probably illegal. All right. You earlier, the question is going to Yunus Atango. Earlier, Professor Samegu indicated that the formal status of a member of a political party confers two duties. One, funded, which you just spoke about, and then the other one is active participation in decision making.
That's right.
Now, I'm sure you heard what Anselmo Jesua also indicated, that part of the challenge that we have been faced with in the Fourth Republic has to do with party managers or party oligarchs who do not even bother to read the founding document of that party, that's to say the constitution, the governing rules of the political party, and yet, the parties continue to take decisions. You then ask yourself, where are the members to take on that duty of active participation in decision making?
Okay. The truth about it is that there are like 4 documents that need to be a guiding principle for every member of any political party. And these documents are the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1, the Constitution of the party itself, and the manifesto of the party, and then, of course, the guidelines and bylaws that take place along the line when we have a political gathering. These documents are supposed to be studied by every member who decides to join the political party, knowing fully well the background of the party. But unfortunately, those in the First and Second Republic, majority of them may have time to read those documents so that they'll be guided as regard to what they want to do and how they want to do it. But presently, the narrative has changed to a point in which people don't see those documents as the most important thing anymore. What they see as important is actually how did they win election? How did they win the vote of the people, whether rightly or wrongly? Interestingly, recently, you cannot imagine, even in the public discourse, certain indices have become an issue for discussion, i.e., there's a trend in which political interest candidates now do. All you need to do, try as much as possible to get the ticket of the party, any way you can. That is what I want to emphasize on the word, any way you can. When you get the ticket of the party of a major political party that resonates with the people a certain area, then you have a starting point. What you need to do again is to ensure that you win the party popular vote by crook or means. Find a way of winning it. When you win it, the next thing you say is that let us meet in the court, because the court will now become a determinant factor of who become who. Then eventually make sure that you have some people who can help in mobilizing talk for violence. Now that particular talk will now become a deciding factor in a public discourse. It was amazing to me because you need to put it into it. We've seen what happened in Kogi and some of the other political elections that we have. So this new narrative, or we can call them dimension into a new political narrative, have become a key issue. Whether they are right or wrong is a different matter entirely, but this is exactly our reality at the moment. Now, we will want to expect that in the First or Second Republic, some of these things don't really rear their heads, because what you find is that you find the society itself. How well is it? How comfortable are the electorates? The situation in those days was different from now. In those days, majority of the electorate are relatively comfortable when you look at how their intakes are and they take care of their family and all. But the situation nowadays is that you can't imagine that 1,000 naira make a difference in the life of a Nigerian citizen. So the life the electorate are living now is quite different. So it makes them more vulnerable to easy buy by the politician or easy use. Unemployment has become so dominant and all. So people can easily be couched into a certain social malfeasance and creating. There was a national summit on political parties, and at the in presence of that particular summit was the former head of state, president and all. We were all seated. Fortunately, as young as I was the Inter-Party Advisory Council chairman. I was seated within their midst. I think that was my apex position. But I was courageous enough to tell them the truth. The fact is that they have found themselves in this position of power. They are enjoying the billions and millions. And they've left their members of the political party in a total poverty. And they expect them to get to get to this particular same political party leader to give them the theoretical and accurate way in which they are doing things. Meanwhile, they who have found themselves, who are beneficiary of this product of the political party, do not treat the political party same. So how do you expect a correlation between those who produce you to those who have now, you have now turned into a milking cow, even though they are not getting anything, and then you expect them to give you correct and normal standard in any electrical domain? It does not happen. So the scenario in those years and the scenario that we find ourselves now are completely different. So that brings in the idea of that you have to be creative of how to survive in this milky water of Nigerian politics.
Indeed, Dr. Yunus Tanko, back then and now, almost 20 years of democracy now, and don't you think that we should have had some certain level of change?
Yes, if there was inclusiveness in governance. The governance as of today is that you deny the members completely. You choose those who you want. There was a lot of kind of accusation, even on the present government, that those who really worked for the party were not the beneficiary of the end product. The president may decide to now pick people who from another different group entirely. And that creates problems for the party and the country in general. Because in politics, everybody have one thing or the other that he wants to do. That is the reason why he joined. So in a situation where you completely exclude the members, just like as he asked the question, the 2 points about a membership is that he financially become a member of the party. Imagine a peasant farmer who worked hard to contribute 2,000 naira into the party. And then when the decision making comes, he's completely annihilated and taken out of the decision making. How do you want him to feel? At the end of it all, instead of him contributing and supporting your government, in succeeding in the position of power, he will now become a cog in the wheel of progress. Because there are some who can take it in their stride, and there are those who can cause a lot of havoc and disharmony. A majority of what you are seeing that we are having as a problem in the country at the moment is members of the political party who are angry, who are not satisfied with the processes, who feel as if they are being taken out and they work so hard for the benefit of the party, and then they are complete. And so they cause problem for who is in incumbent, who is in present situation, and generally, I must tell you, majority of the problem we are having now is politically motivated because there was no inclusiveness in governance.
All right, Tanko, thank you very much for that perspective. Professor Oluremi Shonaya, back again to you via Zoom in this conversation. I was just wondering, you know, in the Second Republic, from what one saw, you heard about alliances, for instance, between the NPN and the NPP, cross-carpeting. It wasn't as pronounced as we have now in the Fourth Republic. And it appears, as some observers have indicated, that politicians who are shopping for political parties are doing so just to fulfill the constitutional imperative of seeking power through the instrumentality of a political party. What exactly, you know, has this done to our democracy, where you have flighty politicians? Today they are in one party, or maybe, as some persons have said, in the morning they are in one party, in the afternoon another party, in the evening another political party. So you don't even have a sense of who belongs where at any particular moment, except insofar as, of course, you can identify them with the particular flag that they have at that material time. What harm is this doing to our efforts at sustaining our democracy?
Thank you very much. I think very, very critical issues are being raised regarding the future of democracy itself in Nigeria. I'd like to start by saying that illiteracy and poverty are two key elements which almost make nonsense of democracy. If Nigeria as a country does not tackle these issues of illiteracy and poverty, then democracy cannot fully be entrenched. The other participants have mentioned the fact that you have more, of buying votes rather than recruiting voters, the whole issue of stomach infrastructure and so on and so forth. How can people who are illiterate, basically, and I don't mean that they says that they can't speak English or something like that, is that they don't really understand what the whole political process means. So even with this current registration of voters, as was done by the APC recently, is it going to be accompanied by training, for instance, of this electorate, of these voters? Are they going to be trained to understand what the vision of APC is? What is the party seeking political power for? What do they want to do in Nigeria? So these are the critical issues. I think that we must realize that we cannot run our political parties any different from the way that we run, our private businesses. Nobody runs their private business in this, sloppy, whatever goes, manner. People look for competent hands, skilled hands, well-trained hands to run their private businesses, especially given this, current dispensation all around the world, where you have to be very highly performing to make it in business. Now it comes to political parties, and we just leave it to the person who has some money, to put down, and then, single-handedly chooses the people, who are going to be maybe the chairman of the local government, and so on and so forth. We cannot afford to run our political parties in that way. We need technical skills for the running of political parties. And that is why I would like to say this here, that I belong to a group now called Fixed Politics. And what we have done is to establish a school of public policy and governance. And currently we have over 200 students who are being trained to know what politics is all about, who are being, equipped, who are being given the skills needed to properly govern and to run politics. We cannot continue in this way and expect that, somehow miraculously a sustainable, democracy will evolve. We are not giving it what it requires for the output to be satisfactory for the whole country. So we're just going to continue, muddling along if we do not address the key issues, like I have said, of illiteracy and poverty, and also of giving the right skills, equipping the people who are going to be in charge of our affairs, in terms of politics.
Professor Lurami, you raised some fundamental issues here, and Professor Egu now said, everybody is a joiner, nobody is a founder. When we watch politics in other countries, in Senate climes, we see people, rising from the bottom to the top, learning the process of, party mechanism and all that. Do we need in this country now, 20 years into this present democracy that we are in, do we need to go back to the drawing board to ensure that people who get to elective positions are trained and know what they need to do?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, to sound like, maybe to be putting anyone down or something like that. We cannot run politics, run the affairs of Nigeria. Let's not even call it running politics. Run the affairs of Nigeria in the 21st century with people who do not know how to operate in the world of the 21st century. It's ridiculous to expect that we would make, important advancements and so on if we do not have people who have the right skills, who have the right, understanding of the complexities of the current world that we live in, and certainly even of our current situation within the country as a people. Look, for instance, there is the Southern African region. They have set up an electoral institute, to address some of these issues, to train people, to equip people with skills. And that is what I said, that a group of concerned citizens are trying to do in Nigeria as well. Let us train the people who are going to manage our affairs. Let us ensure that they have the skills required for the job, and have done with a politics, of the few ramming whatever they like down the throats of the majority. It's not going to get us anywhere. And like my colleague Tanko Unisa has said, these are the reasons that there's so much conflict, so much unrest, and so on in the country. We all know that politics determines the rest of our lives. If things are not working well at the political level, everything else suffers. The roads we travel on, whether we will have electricity being supplied or not, water, schools, hospitals, and so on. It determines, the whole of our lives. How then can we afford to put such an important aspect of our entire existence in the hands of, people who are just interested in how much, they can get into private pockets or whatever, they living big and in opulence while the rest of the society suffer. They do not have the foggiest idea about what it means to be in a democracy and to be servants of the people, because that is what politicians are. It's the citizens that have the power, because it's the citizens that give the power to the political parties, to the politicians. But we've just jumbled and mumbled everything together, and we need to get it straight.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Oluremi Shonaya, and indeed the other guests. We're going to have to take a short break now. When we return from the break, we'll continue with the conversation. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's bring in again Barrister Anselm Ojezua. Anselm, there are a number of issues on the table, actually, but I would like you to speak to one area, namely how political parties can more effectively recruit and then mobilize their members. I've been wondering, we'll be talking about training, the literacy, education. Professor Shonaya was talking about fixing politics and so on and so forth. I've never heard or read of a situation where political parties at various levels got their members together, trying to inculcate the party ideals and so on and so forth, so that they feed the minds of their members rather than seeking to feed their pockets.
Well, quite honestly, what you have just enumerated is actually the responsibility of a political party. The work of a political party is to mobilize its members, to mobilize membership from time to time, to train. Some of the political parties in Nigeria actually have institutes that they have set up over time for the purpose of training and taking care of some of these issues. Whether they actually use them for those purposes, I think is what is doubtful. We just have to have a situation where people will determine to do the right thing. The materials are available. The Constitution is there. But I don't think the situation is as hopeless as it looks at the moment, because I see it as a work in progress. And I think that a lot of landmark events have actually taken place to give us hope. For instance, we have INEC, we also have the judiciary. They have been very up and doing in terms of holding political parties up to the obedience to their rules. We have seen situations like in Zamfara, where even what you may call the ruling party, after winning election, it was found that they did not obey their rules, and what happened? It was jettisoned. It happened in Rivers. That should be a lesson to the rest of us that there is no alternative or substitute for the obedience, to the rules that you have subscribed to. INEC has also shown a lot of, courage in dealing with the situation. In addition, they have also improved from time to time in their processes for conduct of elections. There was a time when people could tell you that, well, we could write results. But I think that that is no more possible. There was a time when people thought that, like some people have even said in this platform, that people buy votes. It is true, people buy votes and so on. But you will find out that the more transparent the process is, the more educated the electorate is, the less likely those monies will make a difference. I think that some elections have actually taken place in this country that give us hope that some of these things will no longer work, that there will be no substitute to doing what you are supposed to do. A political party must be in a permanent state of mobilization. It must continuously educate its members and officers. And that is the reason why they are there. And the officers, some of them, particularly those in the working committees, are the ones who have the responsibility to ensure that this is done continuously. They must have a program for the period of their tenure. They have the framework, but I don't know, like Professor Sonaya said, you may not really have square pegs in square holes. But I believe that as we go on in this process, parties will begin to understand that there is no way you can make progress if you don't have respect for merit and quality.
I'll just, Jumai.
Yes.
Yeah, the nice point that Anselm has raised there. Well, the other issue, I would like Professor Samego to speak to this. Yes, INEC and the courts have indicated to say, look, they have a disciplining effect on political parties that do not abide by their own rules. Fine. And then you have political leaders or political office seekers who are hopping from one political party to another. As I said earlier, I mean, in the morning you see them in one party, in the afternoon is another, in the evening is yet another. And when they are making these transitions, you often hear the apparently bogus claim that they have now rejoined another political party with thousands of their members. So how are such persons expected to internalize almost overnight the ideas and ideology of the new platform, when, of course, in the afternoon they are going to be elsewhere? How do you use this to ensure that a political party, or irrespective of their differences, political parties remain actual going concerns for sustainable democracy?
Yeah. Now, I think the last speaker, from Benin, raised a lot of fundamental issues, which I think will be my point of departure at this point. And one of those issues he raised is that we're already making progress. There are regulatory agencies are up to their task, if there's a little more clarity in the legal framework, for example, for INEC to be able to do what it is going to do, and indeed to stop party leaders from sabotaging the interests of their members and so on and so forth. Now, to be more direct, to the question you have raised, you see, the problem we have with political parties in Nigeria goes back to an issue raised by one of the citizens, just before this program took off. And he made a very simple analogy. He said, in the United States of America, if you are a Democrat, you are a Democrat. If you are a Republican, you are a Republican. That you cannot switch from Republican Party to Democratic Party, and within 6 months, you are becoming the candidate. What does this tell us about the poverty of our party system? The poverty of our party system, as far as I'm concerned, is that political parties, first and foremost, have to stand for something. Something for their members and followers to identify them with, so that in decision to join a party or to run for office, the limit to what you do is set by the ideals you are committed to. But once it is a marketplace, that is not structured by identity of social commitment, ideology, or a particular social project that people can identify with, then what you find in every political party is people have multiple entry visa. They move in, they go out. And they return. And they return. And when they return,
practically means it's just the same party.
of course, and the language for living and for returning is well developed. Oh, I have left those evildoers. Oh, I have returned home after wandering in the wilderness. So the language for this, vagrancy is already there. So I think at the end of the day, we come back to the important point about educating citizens, to know exactly what to do with their votes and to vote for their interests and to begin to use our vote as instrument of political accountability. Because if citizens are aware and they use the power of the vote, it will put pressure on political parties to enforce internal democracy. So if you choose an unpopular candidate and you are taught a lesson by voters, that then sets limits. In the next election, it is expected that you will learn your lesson. And I think the professor made allusion to the fixed politics project that they are doing. In fact, Plato, in his own days, talked about an academy where leaders should be trained. I think we should be able to also do that, but it must be complemented with value orientation. You see, a police officer told a story at a seminar in which I was present. He happened to be there when Shagari was overthrown. And the soldiers around Shagari were looking for money to do the logistics of movement, when they knew that they were being surrounded. And when they opened the bag he was carrying, they only found items that no money there. They didn't find money. Now today, governors, party chairman, local government chairman, they move with money. So money has played a major role in distorting our democracy. And so even the people we are describing in terms of their action, it's not for any other reason. It is this value that people attach to money. So a major value reorientation is required, even as we set up these academies, and Nigerians need to go through this, because you can't continue to live on borrowed times, and then live a life of self-denial, the way we are doing. Because at the end of the day, Yunusa's point is that let us not blame the victims. If people have been so impoverished to a point that they don't even think of their own immediate interest, then we are in crisis. So we need value reorientation, too much about money. Politics is reduced to simple investment, and once we are able to weaken that tie, between money, and power, we are going to solve a lot of problems. That means we need to punish, we need to sanction, You know, somebody said the major problem of Nigeria is that it's a consequence-free society. We cannot continue to be consequence-free.
Exactly.
But, Juma, you know, I don't know, you're going to pop a question.
Yes.
One issue arising from all of this that we've been discussing to say, all right, INEC is working, the judiciary is working, the parties themselves are beginning to realize a few things. But I've always thought about something. When you say the procedure for selecting your candidates for an election, which is usually the primaries, it could be direct primaries, it could be indirect primaries. It is often alleged that the indirect primaries, which is by delegates, are usually manipulated, which brings in the issue of money politics. And then the direct primary. Why is it that we have not sufficiently interrogated the fundamentals of the primaries conducted by political parties to select or elect their candidates? You must first have a register, a credible register, an up-to-date register, for you to now say, okay, these are the delegates that we are taking to our convention or otherwise. Okay. But if it is direct primaries, how valid or authentic is that register of members?
Let me digress a little bit or answer one question before I answer your question. Now, when we led the Interparty Advisory Council, benevolently by the UNDP, we had an institute, Political Party Training, Management and Training Institute. It's still there at NIPS. That particular institute is to train leaders of political party, and they did. They trained the chairman, they trained the secretaries, PROs, and the rest of them. Down the line, this institute is there for the training. Just to go back to the point of more or less that literacy for even the leaders before it comes to even the party members. And some political parties, just like Aslam said, they have institutes. And we, probably in my own party, what we do is that anytime we have an agenda of meeting, the state of the nation must always be discussed first as a way of training members. And also a lot of people do, but that is not really the departure point. Is actually the situation of money usage in our politics. Secondly, we have an opportunity now. The opportunity is the amendment of the Electoral Act as a panacea to solving some of this particular problem. Unfortunately, we are hearing information that some of the sections, like for example, Section 3, Subsection 3, is talking about how to fund INEC itself to make it more effective. Some are suggesting that INEC should be given its own money 2 years even before the period so that it can take care of the program that they have.
To make it independent.
Yes, so that they can easily generate their money and use it without any interference. Two, we're talking about Section 50, Subsection 2, which has to do with electronic transformation of result. This is key because you've seen the result of what happened in Edo and Ondo. This is not to gratify any or because Professor is here, but this is a fact. We all were happy about the result because the same result you see at the police station is what is being transmitted. The social media people who usually create fake news, they didn't have any business again to do in that particular period of time. Section 65 of that particular Electoral Act also is talking about how people are being asked to announce results at gunpoint. At duress, and then using it as a way of saying that after you announce the result, let's meet in the courts. Okay, yeah. And this is supposed to be dealt with. And then fourthly, talking about Section 76 of that particular, talking about how to register a political party. And at the end of it all, party financing would delve into the issue of now thinking to increase the rate of money from 1 billion naira to 15 billion naira for presidency. And why talking about 500,000 naira for governor to 5 billion naira? When they have so much money in their kitty, they use it again to continue to manipulate the system. So the National Assembly have an opportunity now, especially in that Section 50, Subsection 2, where the word may or shall is being manipulated. The word may is subjective, it's not affirmative. But when you use the word shall, it's affirmative. It gives a direction to say that the INEC is being empowered that they should transmit this result from the ward level, from the police station into just. It takes care of this collation center, this crazy collation center that has manipulated system. So in other words, We need to get the fundamentals right now for the benefit of the future. The National Assembly owe it as a duty not to think about themselves. Because one day they will leave that seat of power. If they do not give us laws that will give us a credible election in 2023, we will still be going back to that particular training board of how to train ourselves on the value system that was supposed to be entrenched.
Even if the Electoral Act is passed,
yes,
do you think implementation will take place before 2023?
Of course, we are starting much earlier now. Not that the other time. They are about 2 years or 1 year ahead of us now to have the Electoral Act being passed into law, so that Mr. President will not say that it's close to election, that he will not assent to it. We can have it now, and it's not even just having the Electoral Act. We want to have an acceptable Electoral Act that will give us quality elections. At the end of it, was giving us quality leaders. Then we end up having quality governance. Then we have a better Nigeria. Okay. It's simple.
All right. Yunus Atanko, thank you very much. Professor Shonaya, well, we can refer to other aspects of the Constitution and of the Electoral Act with regard to the further empowerment of INEC to more effectively perform its functions. I have raised the issue of direct and indirect primaries and the basis for conducting those elections. It appears to me that our experience in recent years has been that whenever parties are conducting their primaries, INEC just goes there to observe, to monitor. There are no questions asked that say, look, these persons who are there, are they members of your political party? So if so, what is the person's name? And now that you are having the digital registration of the members, it is so easy to punch and see if a name pops up and indeed that name matches with what is there as part of the validation process of primaries. Another point, which relates to party financing, INEC is also supposed to be in charge of getting financial reports from the political parties and even the audited accounts. I don't know how many political parties have done this since the advent of the Fourth Republic, even if we had it, say, in the Second Republic.
Thank you very much. I missed some parts of your question because the audio wasn't very clear, but let me try and address, what I think you're raising in terms of the conduct of elections, even as has been mentioned, primaries and so on. Again, I would like to emphasize that all of this must be considered as serious business. Other panelists have talked about the overarching importance of money in our whole electoral process. And I believe that it is a matter to be seriously given attention by our National Assembly, the law-making body for the nation. It was quite a revealing moment for me. Was it last week when the Senate president went to see the head of state, the president, in Aso Villa, and when he came out, his declaration was, Nigeria is a poor country. Let's not, fool ourselves about it. Now, if that is the case, with Nigeria now being the poverty capital of the world, that means that we have to take some drastic steps to redress the situation, to ensure that our people will be able to live in basic dignity. So I would have thought that what would follow then would be a serious series of consultations on what we can do as a country to maybe cut down areas of waste or whatever, and find the money to use to serve the people of Nigeria. Let me quickly refer to this. It's a point I'd like to make. Senegal. So we are not talking Britain, US, or whatever. Senegal in West Africa. In, I believe it was 2012 or 2013, they found themselves in a difficult situation. There was flood, serious flooding in some areas of the country, and they needed a substantial amount of money to resettle the people who were displaced by the floods, you know, to reconstruct that whole area and so on. You know, oh, they could easily have said, oh, we have to go and borrow, you know, for infrastructure development and so on. No. Do you know what they did? They decided to scrap their Senate. They said, let us save the money that we are using to pay senators. Meanwhile, maybe they'll go back to having a bicameral system. After that, I don't know. Yeah. But let us go ahead and do something. Nigeria is at a moment now where we need to do something drastic.
Professor Oluremi, I have to cut you in there. We've sort of completely run out of time, and I'm sure that your explanation has really landed with our listeners and viewers this morning. Let us thank you, Professor Oluremi Sonae, retired professor of French language and applied linguistics, 2015 COA party presidential candidate. She joined us via Zoom. Thank you so much for your input. Aselem Ojezwa, former commissioner and former APC chairman, Edo State, as usual, your input was quite commendable. And Dr. Yunus Atanko, Chairman, National Conscience Party, thank you so much, always for honoring our invitation.
Thank you very much. God bless Nigeria.
Professor Sam Egu, Resident Electoral Commissioner for Niger State. He is also a professor of political science, and he has sort of brought a new dimension to the conversation this morning. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Join us tomorrow for another edition. I am Juma Yusuf.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. I'm saying, do have a nice day.